Confidence doesn't come from playing it safe. It comes from walking into the unknown with your head held high. And of course, there's some fear. You could have the fear and still do it anyway. And that's what I think is really important. Is there risks? Yeah. But you got to be confident to handle what comes your way. You may be fearful and nervous, but you're still handling it. You're still going for it. You're still moving forward. And it's these people that are watching all these narcissist videos online and they weaponize that. It's also happening in dating. It's also happening in relationship. That narcissism is getting weaponized. And guess what? People are starting to see confident individuals as a threat. It's creating a new negative norm. It's getting to that point because what's happening is we're seeing lots and lots of echo chambers. That's what the internet can become. All these little hashtags, these little collectives are falling into these echo chambers, right? So it's like a person just wants to walk through life and own their own space and not need approval from anyone. That's what the confident person really wants to do. Confidence is kryptonite to the fragile person's identity. So what do? They attack. They label. Because in order to label, got to remember this. I want you to remember this for the rest of your life. In order to judge, you must label. Because narcissism is now it's being used in bullying with kids, and it's like the lines are getting so blurred that people are having trouble, actually, kids developing healthy self-esteem because it's like, I don't want to be a narcissist. Because I deal with leadership and I coach people in leadership and I deal with leadership in business, I hear it all the time. I hear it from so many people. They all say the same thing. I want to be a leader, but I don't want to appear like a narcissist. And the lines have been blurred when you get hit with that question. And I'm here to smack that bee's nest right down to the ground and let you know that empathy and emotional intelligence are two major parts of somebody who's confident. And that's all for today. Until next time, keep owning your greatness and take care. So, your confidence becomes the target. They'll chip away at it, hoping that they actually knock you off balance, right? And then they start to deflect. When it's time to confront them, instead of actually them taking a level of responsibility, they have to shift the blame onto you. And that's when they start to use the word you, right? They start to become blamatory, or why are you so defensive, right? Social media has become a breeding ground for this kind of attack. It's getting bad. But don't worry, because what we're going to do, what I'm going to aim to do, is really break it down so you can stay on top and be educated and keep that confidence soaring. Just understanding that your confidence can still maintain. Because I've spoken to people like, well, I'm afraid to be confident. Why? Because I'm afraid to appear as a narcissist. And that's what's happening a great deal, is that people are confusing the sharks and the guppies because the lines have become blurred. So the next time someone calls you a narcissist for walking in your truth, and standing in your confidence and being aware of who you are, having some self-awareness, some self-worth, and some actual self-esteem. Remember, you're not the one with the issue. They are. And again, they've weaponized the word because they want to tear down confident people. If you ever tried to stand up for yourself or you call them out, they'll just turn the tables on you and say, they'll try to manipulate the situation. So you start questioning your reality. Say, what do you mean? I'm not the narcissist, you are. You're the one that's a narcissist. And they'll just like reverse that on you. And before you know it, you're going tit for tat in a ridiculous argument and you're doubting yourself when you're actually a confident person, right? You start to fall into that area of taking a hit on your self-esteem. Now, the biggest antic of them all is people smear. So their favorite tactic on social media is actually to throw up a comment when they really don't know what a narcissist is, and they throw it out there and they've weaponized it and they start telling everyone how awful you actually are. And this happens in the bullying circle. When kids are trying to gain their confidence, the other people will start to paint them up as that. And they just have their journey. It's a sneaky tactic. It's a sneaky tactic that's really used to tear down people that are actually confident. So we're going to talk about how people with their own insecurities who really don't know what narcissism is, and they weaponize narcissism and try to make it feel like you're the problem when really they just don't know what narcissism actually means. In other words, they don't have enough education about it. So what they're doing is they're throwing out a claim without actually having any information to really back up what they're actually saying. And they can paint you up and paint the picture as much as they want. That's what they're going to aim to do, right? So they do it all because people that are confident, they step out confidently, walking in their purpose, standing in their power, standing with their authority, standing with nice self-esteem and warm self-worth. And guess what? But today we're diving into the deep topic that's been running wild on the streets. Narcissism itself has now become the new hashtag with a lot of narcissism camps in a variety of places on social media. And they're all throwing around that buzzword. They're throwing around the word narcissism. And what's been happening from what I've been seeing is a lot of the lines are getting blurred because there's a lot of misunderstanding, there's a lot of misconception, there's a lot of misinformation, and people are tossing out the word, well, it's got to be trauma informed. And if it's not trauma informed, well, it doesn't account for anything. So a narcissist will really love to find the cracks in your armor, right? They'll target your vulnerabilities and they'll always use the word you. Using the word you is blamatory. So if you point out a deficit of theirs, they say, well, you do this, well, you do that. And it's always you. There's no accountability on their end, right? So when they use the word you, and if you're ever in an argument with a person, avoid using the word you because it becomes very blamatory. You start to blame each other on things, especially when you're trying to have a healthy relationship, a solid communication. The word you automatically starts to create blame on both sides very, very quick. PD, as it's called, it's a pervasive pattern of grandiosity. They're in a fantasy, right? It's in a fantasy or even in a behavior that they need admiration and they lack empathy. And in their early adulthood, it's present in a variety of different contexts. And it's all about how they look. It happens to be very external. There's no sense of inner confidence. It's all external. It's all about how they look. Authenticity is when you decide to shine with your talents, even though you're afraid. Think of it that way, and you're no longer hiding parts of who you are. So the real confident person is they're not trying to be anyone else. They're too busy working on who they are. It's not that they're too busy being themselves. They're working on who they are. They understand that it's a constant level of work. There's no fakeness. There's no fronting. There's just pure, authentic nature. I want you to remember this for the rest of your life. In order to judge, you must label. So when you start throwing that label out of narcissist, a whole slew of judgments will come with it. And that's the thing, right? There is a difference, by the way, between discernment and judgment, and we'll save that for another show. Entirely different show. But it's all because they don't understand what narcissism actually is. There's so much misinformation and gray areas out there. These echo chambers starting to cluster up, and you can't tell the sharks from the guppies, or at least the quality from the misinformation, right? So the same people who will accuse you of being self-absorbed because you decided to post a picture of success or share your achievements. But guess what? That's not narcissism. That's called being proud of who you are. But people will weaponize the word narcissism and say, oh, he's a narcissist. Look, he posted a picture of himself after a workout, right? That sort of thing. So instead of rising up to get to know you, they tear you down because it's easier, especially when the gap hasn't been bridged, the communication, getting to know that person, right? They're terrified of the mirror of confidence, that you hold to them. That's what it is. So in closing thoughts, the next time someone tries to just tell you that, your confidence, your self-esteem, your self-worth makes you a narcissist, just remember, it is not you, it is them. because it says more about their character than it actually does you. And you're not the real problem. To actually have confidence is to uplift other people, to care about people, to love other people, to have empathy with other people, right? Not doing it in a transactional way, but doing it in a love and strength kind of way, right? And that's the thing, there's strength involved. A confident person doesn't lose their mind when they stub their toe or when someone disagrees with them on a topic. They just learn to ground themselves. They stay grounded, they stay calm, they do their best to stay collected. As far as drama, yeah, it's not their scene. It really isn't, right? They may be doing some acting on the side in that way, but they're coming from a confident place where they understand what a craft actually is. And there is some authenticity. Now, there is a level of self-respect as well. And self-respect is important because you got to be able to take care of yourself. And self-respect is connecting to self-care as well. And confidence comes from within. It's all about respecting yourself, even when others don't. So you're not here trying to get more likes or validation. You're your own coach that stands behind you to actually motivate you. Think of true confidence is quieter, but also having a sense of self-worth. And it's way more powerful than the Gucci bag. Now, it's knowing who you are, having a strong sense of identity, flaws and all, understanding that there are flaws do exist, and being at peace with who you are and being at peace with your flaws, that you don't need to prove anything to anyone. Let's talk about humility. Being humble is powerful. You know, it's absolutely powerful, and confidence can be connected to humbleness, humility. It doesn't need to make others feel small. Confident people know their worth. They know that they don't have anything to prove. There's no need to belittle anyone. They lift others up. They like to help people grow. That's especially me. That's something I like. I like to help people grow. So when we first dissect true confidence, the first thing that comes up as a major component is actually self-awareness, being aware of who you actually are. And confident people don't need to fake that. They know exactly who they are. They know who they're not. And they don't shy away from their strengths, their flaws, or their quirks. They get themselves, they understand who they are. There's no pretending. So this pattern, at the end of the day, is indicated by at least five of the following. Five of the following. And the first one is the grandiose sense of self-importance, thinking that they're more important than anyone else. And that's the difference between like confidence is like, well, you can uplift other people and support other people, right? And you can even teach other people. But having a grandiose sense of self-importance is that I'm better than the rest of the world, right? But having a grandiose sense of self-importance is that I'm better than the rest of the world, right? Now, there is preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, unlimited power, unlimited brilliance, okay? And of course, unlimited beauty. Sometimes it's how they look. And they're believing that they're not just special, but they're like way beyond that. All right, they're superior. I want to get very clear about it. The lacking mirrors that people with weak confidence will have a tough time with strong, secure people. All right. If they're humble enough and want to learn, you know, they have a desire, they get a little bit of courage, they actually want to learn, and they actually want to be humble and step into who they are, they will indeed be influenced in a positive way. You know, if they could see the other person in a positive way, if they can see that it is indeed possible, right? And that's the thing. Some people feel like it's like so far-fetched. When they have weak confidence, they have a tough time with those strong people, because what happens is they reflect back what they don't have. So the other person's strong, naturally with their behaviors and their mentality and mental attitude, They reflect back to the other person what that person doesn't have. We're going to go over today's podcast episode. It's titled Weaponized Narcissism and Confidence, Understanding the Real Deal. So if it's your first time on the show, I just want to welcome you to the show. Thank you for coming on the train ride of Voices of Victory. And we talk about things that matter on here, which is very relative to developing ourselves, developing who we are, things that matter without all of the sugarcoating that goes on. It's a sneaky tactic. It's a sneaky tactic that's really used to tear down people that are actually confident. Now, the weaponized narcissism, that's the ugly truth that we're going to unpack. If this was the movie Aliens, this would be what we call a face sucker, right? Right on top of your face. It's the ugly truth. So we're going to get dirty with it because weaponized narcissism occurs when people take the traits of narcissism and use them as a weapon to tear down someone who's just out there trying to live their life in peace, and they're confident and they're showing that they're confident and maybe even they're proud, and it's a healthy amount of proud, but it's the ultimate sneak attack is to the weak person pasting up the confident person as a narcissist. It is them because it says more about their character than it actually does you. And you're not the real problem. To actually have confidence is to uplift other people, to care about people, to love other people, to have empathy with other people, right? Not doing it in a transactional way, but doing it in a love and strength kind of way, right? And that's the thing, there's strength involved. And when other people come at you from a place of inadequacy, that strength could be a threat to who they are. So when people try to take you down with the weaponized narcissism, just keep going, walk in your power, hold your head up high, keep being you. The lion doesn't stop because of the hyenas that are there, right? The elephant can move through the parade even though there's a few barking dogs nearby, right? And he could still have confidence through that parade. So that's all for today with Voices of Victory.